Dynasty versus disappointment. I think that's probably the word that I'm going to use. Let's talk about the Chiefs and dynasty. Kansas City wins the Super Bowl 22-19 in overtime. Come from behind win. They won the game because of coaches' adjustments. Andy Reid's play calling, throw to the second and third receiver, throw to the backup tight end, move Patrick Mahomes around. His play calling was dynamic. That's why the sub-heroes were the tight end Watson and the backup wide receiver Scantling. He created running lanes for Patrick Mahomes. They went max protect. They changed their formations, which kind of slowed down the pass rush. They had the 75-yard touchdown drive against the clock and against that San Francisco defense at the end of the game. Harrison Butker, what an unbelievable kicker he is. 4 more field goals in pressure-packed times. We had the screaming session on the sideline between Kelce and Reid because Kelce was peeved he was not in certain formations when a turnover occurred. And Reid marches towards Bill Belichick's 33 playoff wins in the course of his career. Andy Reid's now got 27 postseason wins at the special time of the year. In terms of the incident, yeah, you can say that was a flashpoint. Kelce, the competitor, Reid, the stoic coach. But it was a bad look. It was a really bad look for Travis Kelce. I think Kelce owes Andy Reid an apology for what he did because that was really over the top. If it had been somebody else, it'd probably be real problems I'd have to deal with because it was Kelce that kind of sloughed it off. But I think Kelce owes Andy Reid an apology. Shanahan, Mike's got a son who's got a problem in postseason. Kyle has just not gotten the job done. This is going to be an albatross around his neck till he wins postseason games. He has now lost 4 critical playoff games when they've had double-digit leads. Ooh. As a head coach or when he was in the Super Bowl with Atlanta. That's not a success rate that you want. Dominant first half. That was a defensive war. Then it became a war of attrition in the second half. What I don't understand, when Frisco was dominating the first half, they played Powerball with Christian McCaffrey. And then they didn't use him from the back end of the second quarter through virtually the entire third quarter. He was not part of the offense. He fell in love with Brock Purdy trying to throw the ball against that pass rush. They used some motion, but they didn't bust any big plays using the motion. Not sure where the Jets sweeps were that they used during the course of the season. Jake Moody did surprise us with a couple field goals, including the 55-yarder, but he missed a critical point after, and that's why that sucker wound up going to overtime. Terrible look to see Dre Greenlaw go down with a torn Achilles tendon, just jogging from the sidelines to go back onto the field. Boom, he goes down. It was a deathly silent at San Francisco locker room afterwards. They're really hurting. And like I said, it's the 4th time Kyle Shanahan's lost a double-digit lead in a postseason game that's cost him either a playoff win or, in this case, the Super Bowl. So you tell me your thoughts on what Kansas City did, the adjustments they made. Does Kelce owe Andy Reid an apology? And that albatross hanging around Shanahan's neck.
Well, let's talk about the Kelce situation because, yeah, it was a bad look. And in the beginning of the game there, Kelce wasn't really much in the rotation, not just on the field, but there weren't many balls being thrown to him. So I assume he was getting covered, and that's why they were going to the other guys. But when he comes roaring out and, chest bumps Andy Reid and gets right in his face, I mean, clearly inappropriate. Andy Reid seemed to slough it off, say, oh, yeah, it's just, I love my guys. They're competitors. But it's funny how that photo of, Travis Kelce right in Andy Reid's face is turning into a meme on the internet that's being used for all sorts of other things of one guy yelling at another guy trying to get his point across. So it's pretty funny. You said on Thursday in our podcast leading up to the Super Bowl that it was going to come down to the kickers. And boy, did it. That missed field goal, that's the difference.
The missed point after.
Or, excuse me, the point after. Even after he hit 2 50-plus yard field goals, he misses a point after, and that's the thing that screws over the Niners.
Yeah, 8 missed kicks, most of them in the back half of the schedule. Mm-hmm. And one in every playoff game they played, he missed something. So that's a tough call. I will say this. Unbelievable defensive war in the first half. How the guys on the defensive line had any energy left, John, to play the second half is beyond me. And then the game went to overtime. They had to be running on fumes. And the second half of the game was all about Andy Reid's adjustments and Kyle Shanahan's inability to get back to what made them successful. I mean, Reid changed formations in the second half. Kelce was boxed and doubled and coverage over the top. And what they do, he threw to Watson, the other tight end on the other side. He threw to Gray. He threw to the untrustworthy wide receivers who caught some passes.
Mm-hmm.
Then Atlanta had to shift some. Atlanta wound up going back to their zone. Not Atlanta. San Francisco wound up going back to their zone. And then Kelce started catching everything. He wound up with 9 receptions, I think 7 of them in the second half.
Yeah.
Because the defense has changed. And Andy Reid changed his offense. They changed their formations. They put tight ends in. Kelce became a tight end on the line of scrimmage who come down the line of scrimmage in block, in motion. Watson did the same thing from the other side. I mean, Kansas City just did some things to slow down what San Francisco was doing defensively. And then obviously we had talked about this. I thought there'd be some formations that they ran some loaded formations, and Mahomes ran the other way on design quarterback keepers. Patrick Mahomes had runs of 6, 8, 18, and 21 yards, most of them in the second half. And that fueled drives. Mahomes had a huge third down run, first down, a huge fourth down run, designed first down, game-winning drive, game over. Reid made adjustments. For some reason, Shanahan failed to go back to what he had before. And he had 2 power backs when they were pounding Kansas City. Why would you go away from McCaffrey? Why would you not use Elijah Mitchell more and just continue to wipe out the defense? Because as they ran it, long drives, clock runs, who's on the sideline standing next to Reid? Mahomes.
Yeah.
So Andy Reid, mad scientist. Look at what they devised, what they made adjustments to in the second half. And Shanahan stood there like a mummy, just looking at his play chart and trying to run the same things and getting away from what made San Francisco successful in the first half. I thought it was a hell of a game. Just, my God, to play the whole season. And think about the gauntlet that Kansas City ran. Miami, Buffalo, Baltimore, San Francisco. All of them had great defensive statistics all season long, and Kansas City won every one of those games.
Incredible. I mean, yeah, you're right. And like here again, Andy Reid, super genius, just like we talked about him last year. It's incredible the way that guy just is so smart about the game. I mean, it's just amazing. But just this game just had it all, didn't it? I mean, you had the slugfest, the attrition, you had the crazy plays, the runs. Even when Mahomes runs, you ever notice that his cadence, where the way he runs is unusual? It's the gates. Yeah. It's almost like a wiggle, the way he goes down the field. But those were, busting, up the plays there when he got through and got like 20 or 30 yards on some of those runs.
Yeah, he broke San Francisco's back defensively.
Yeah. And then in the third quarter, you're right. Like Brock Purdy was over. He wasn't completing passes. And then even at the very end of the game, the Niners could have won that game if Chris Jones was blocked, and they had Jennings in the flat. And I think Ayuk was like free in the end zone. They missed that opportunity. So yeah, they lost a lot of other guys to injuries. I mean, it wasn't just Greenwood. I mean, there were other guys that were just getting knocked out. Yeah, it was brutal. It
was an unbelievably physical game. And for them to play a full 60 minutes and then have 15 more minutes overtime, I mean, it was quite an accomplishment. All right, we talked about coaches. Let's move on and talk about the next